All right, pass holders, it is 8:30 a.m. and I am just getting ready to leave our resort here at Disneyland, and I'm headed to the Disney Studios in Burbank. It's about an hour drive. It's Monday morning, it's rush hour, so I'm leaving a little bit early because I'm not really used to LA traffic, but we are going to be doing the full D23 walking tour. We're gonna see the studios, we're gonna see the archives, we're gonna see Walt's office. Now, there isn't any video recording allowed, but I'm going to take as many pictures as I possibly can. So I don't have my D23 card. The app kept crashing and we couldn't get it, so I hope they let me in. I don't even know what gate to go to at the studio, so I'm gonna try and go in the same gate that Lindsay Lohan goes in, and if they tell me different, I'm gonna go in a different gate or do whatever they want me to do. I guess I have parking on the lot, so it's about an hour to 2 hour walking tour, or 2.5 hour walking tour, and I'm gonna take as many pictures as I can. So let's get on the 5. Let's head towards Burbank, and I'll check in when we get to the studios. All right, this is gonna be a good day. So I've made it to the Disney Studios area here in Burbank. So all this here that you can see on the left is the studio lot. I'm kind of early, so I'm just kind of circling around here, and I didn't have any paperwork to let me know what gate that I'm even supposed to go into. But I love this. Look at this, the wrought iron fence here. They have the little Mickeys on the top, and you can see all the stages, and the stage doors are open. It's crazy because this is just a neighborhood here in Burbank. Imagine living right across from stage 6, which is right here. That's crazy. So I texted Kristen to find out what gate or entrance am I supposed to go in. I just drove by the ABC actual, headquarters for ABC, but I still have 10 minutes before they're supposed to let me in the gate. So I'm here at the studios, guys, and I am going to drive around for another 12 minutes. I'm going to drive a circle around and just, check stuff out. And then we're going to go on the gate. I'm just going to pick one and randomly see if they'll let me in. We'll see. All right, it's official. I am in the lot. That's stage 4, stage 2 over there. They let me in a little bit early. I'm parked here on the Disney Studios lot. They gave me my special badge, and they said, just don't get out of your car until 10. So I have 6 minutes until I can get out and go check in for my tour. So this is quite awesome. I've never been on a studio lot before. It's my first time. And it just happens to be my favorite company, the Walt Disney Company, and their studios. So this is gonna be awesome. They told me where to go, where to start my tour. Guys, this is where the video from me stops. I can't do any more video. I can only take pictures until the tour is over. So when the tour is over, I'll check back in with you guys. But from here on out, it's going to be probably just me talking and narration and pictures of the tour. So let's get this thing started. This is pretty awesome. Let's go check out the Disney D23 studio walking tour of the Disney Studios here in Burbank.
Okay, let's start the tour. I should start out by saying that I'm recording this about a week later, so I'm going to try and remember as much as I possibly can. I'm going to go through all my pictures. Like I said, I wasn't allowed to take any video, but guess what? I didn't follow the rules. I took one video. And if you guys stick with me towards the very end, I will share the video that I took. It's actually really, really cool. It's something that is brand new at the studio, and I'm sorry, Disney, but I took a really quick video of it. I hope you're okay with that. So this right here is the main entrance to the Walt Disney Studios here in Burbank. I knew that this was not the entrance that I was supposed to go through, as I could see employees. This was a Monday morning, so I could see employees coming in their cars and going right through the gate. But I thought, heck, this is my only time to try and say I'm going through the main gate. So I turned in there and I went through the main gate. They didn't really specify on D23 where you were supposed to go, so I said, why not go for the gold? So I went through this main gate here that's right by their main team building. And yeah, the security guard was really nice, but was like, yeah, your entrance is around the corner on Buena Vista. But yeah, you can just turn around. They were super cool about it. But I tried to sneak in with the employees, and that didn't go so well. But it was great. They handed me my badge. They knew who I was at the gate, which was really cool. They had a badge with my name on it, and I was a little bit early. They said, you can park here in the lot, but they said, you can't get out of your car for 5 minutes. And then they told me where to go because they said, somebody's going to be there. You have to be escorted by somebody. Because really, I had free reign to the whole Disney Studios at that point. So I did as I was told. I stayed in the car until I was supposed to go in. I checked in really quick. I was like one of the first people to check in, so it was great. They said, hey, the Disney Studios store is right here. Spend some time in the Disney Studios store and look around. And so I did. I went in and their Halloween stuff had just come out that day. So this was the studio store that had they had specific pins just for the studio. Now, I spent like 20 minutes in there. I went and used the restroom over at the commissary, which was kind of cool. But we got to go here after the tour to buy whatever we wanted. And they did have a special area just for like exclusive Disney merchandise from Burbank and for employees. And we were allowed to buy whatever we wanted, which was really cool. I bought a ton of stuff. In fact, I FaceTimed with Kristen while I was in there after the tour. And let her look around and pick out whatever she wanted. We got these pins here, which were great and exclusive to the studio in Burbank. So the tour started right on time. There were only 7 of us. 7 of us in the tour. This is our tour guide here. She did an amazing, amazing job. You're going to see her in a lot of the pictures. I felt bad for her. She was kind of like getting over pneumonia. And so she was like struggling to get through the tour, but she did like a really, really great job. You can see Providence Hospital there in the background. This right here where they started the tour was actually a gift from Walt Disney World. This is a topiary. She said, I can't remember if it was a gift for the 100th anniversary of the company, but it was a gift from Walt Disney World. She said, Disney World loves topiaries. And so they sent a topiary over of Mickey, and it promptly died because the weather in California is much drier. And so they sent a second one, that one died. They sent a third one, that one also died. By the 4th one, they figured out that they needed to use some different plants to make the topiary survive, and now it's thriving. So there you go, a little bit of Walt Disney World in the Disney Studios in Burbank. I thought that was pretty cool. And I'm glad that they shared that with the tour. Very, very cool. Little piece of history there, and it was right kind of in front of the commissary. She also pointed out this flagpole that said, this flagpole is the only flagpole in the world that flies the Walt Disney Company flag. And too bad it wasn't a breezy day at all, so we couldn't see the flag, but that flagpole is the only one in the world that flies the Walt Disney World Company corporate flag, so that was cool. Our very first stop, guys, this studio is small. It's very small, and right next to that flagpole was the Sherman Brothers stage. Obviously iconic Sherman Brothers here, named after them, who made so many of those classic, amazing Disney melodies. This soundstage is used occasionally for large recordings. And when I say large recordings, I mean like orchestral large recordings. Clearly, we weren't allowed to go in this building. It's a hot set. I don't know if they were recording anything that day, but we were allowed to get up close to the doors and take some pictures here of this amazing stage. A lot of probably classic Disney music that you've heard recorded right here at the Sherman Brothers stage. Right across from that was the Disney commissary. Now, she pointed out they don't have fine dining at the Disney commissary anymore, but they used to. That right-hand corner room used to be fine dining where Walt Disney would take his clients to wine and dine them. Now it's just cafeteria style. She did point out that now their fine dining is in the top of the rotunda of their new team building. That's the building that's held up by the 7 dwarfs. So no more fine dining available here at the commissary, but they do still have Walt's Chili. She said that's a menu item that has always been there, is Walt's Chili, and it's still there today. Sorry, Harper was just coming in to say hello to me, so she slammed the door behind her, obviously. I wish I could have gone in there to get some of Walt's Chili, but I did, however, point out to them that I did have Walt's Chili at Disneyland the day before, so good enough. And just like a couple of steps, literally just a couple of steps away, because everything is so close here, is the iconic Pluto's Corner. This right here is probably what you've seen in most of the videos and pictures from Walt Disney Studios. This is Pluto's Corner, where they have this signpost directing you to all the different buildings on the lot. This actually, that they pointed out, is a prop. It's a movie prop. This signpost is a movie prop that was added in for a specific Disney feature. And I'm going to have a little bit of trivia along the way here. So if you know what Disney feature this prop was created for, leave it in the comments for me. And you'll win props. There you go, props. Props for a prop. But Pluto's Corner was really cool. And obviously a lot of people on the tour wanted to get pictures here. This just reminded me so much of that movie Saving Mr. Banks. All took place right there here on Pluto's Corner. And Pluto's Corner would not be complete without paw prints from Pluto. Those are there in the cement. She did point out that it was very weird that there are only 3 paw prints, considering dogs have 4 legs. So 3 paw prints for Pluto, not really quite sure why. They were willing to take some pictures for us, so I'm glad I got my picture here in front of this iconic piece of Disney Studio lore. What an opportunity to do that. That was so cool. Got a couple of pictures. She was great. Our Disney tour guide took awesome pictures, so thank you for that. On our way to the animation building, we did pass by their theater. This is their screening room theater. This is where Saving Mr. Banks actually had its premiere. You can see they've got some Fantastic Four artwork up there. This theater was just recently overhauled. I wish we could have been able to go in there, but this was like a screening theater where Walt would have gone to screen some of his pictures for the first time before they made their theatrical debut. But this was really interesting and fun to see. She did say that there were some premieres that happen here, but mostly it's just used for company stuff. But that the theater was restored to its kind of original, interior, what it used to be in the heyday. We didn't waste any time, guys. We moved right onto the animation building. And if you know that Disney Animation is not in this building anymore. They used to be in this building. This is where Walt's office is. This is where so many of your favorite like Disney animations were created right here. This building is old. This building is original. So the Walt Disney Studios was built with the money from Snow White. The profits from Snow White built the entire Walt Disney Studios here in Burbank, including this building that was form-built just for animation, like the first of its kind. So what I did notice as I was walking around the lot is that, garbage cans are the same. The eating tables. I didn't see anybody eating on these, but I guess you could. They were the same. I wish they would have had they have a Burbank logo. I wish they would have had the Burbank logo on there, but no. But they are the same trash cans from the theme parks, which I found kind of amusing. Had to get a selfie here in front of the animation building. We were moving pretty quick. With a small group, we were moving pretty quick, so I was trying to snap as many images as I could. You walk right into the animation building on the first floor, and there he is. There's a pointillism of Walt Disney there right inside the door. So I had to grab that. She also pointed out that this is a list here on the wall of every feature animation created at Disney. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's a short list. But there's so many there, and it's updated for, it had the last one, I think Zootopia 2 was on there. So, all the different, animations, not just the ones that were created in this building, but, all of them. Their new animation building is right across the street. The one with the big sorcerer hat it's still there. It's across the street. We didn't get a tour of that, but this was actually a more interesting building to get a tour of because the history is all here. So along this building, basically in the animation building, we were just allowed to tour the hallways, and we were asked not to share specific offices or workspaces because people were working in there. And this animation building is now used for more third-party people who work with Disney. So people who are, have a collaboration with Disney in some way, have offices in here now. And so we saw lots of interesting studio offices along these hallways, but the hallways are lined. And this was brand new. This was a brand new Studio Lab doorway that was actually moving. It was translucent, but that's a little bit of, I think that's BB-8, just a little bit there that you can see, Anna or Elsa there. I think, sorry. But it was moving. The whole window was moving, and our tour guide said that was brand new. She'd never seen that before. And if you stick around, I may have a video of it at the end. It was interesting because this first floor in the animation building is actually kind of a tribute to animation and the history of how animation works. And it started with storyboards and storyboard artwork. And then it started with some renderings, and they pointed out that these beautiful renderings for these animations were never actually screen used. They were just made so that the artists could see if this was going to work on screen. So as you move down the first floor, it was kind of hey, this is how animation works, and these are the different ways that we try to see if we're going to be able to make this movie happen, if this animation is going to work, and case studies on, breaking apart different key frames. And they told us that the key animators didn't animate the entire film. They would animate key frames. And by key frames, I mean, like, she mentioned that in Beauty and the Beast, where maybe where the Beast does some like flourishing movement, the key animator would do like 5 or 6 different key frames of that. And then different animators that weren't the key animators would come in and fill in all the 24 frames, all the work in between. So some of these we're looking at here are key frames from different animated features. They actually had a flip book here that you could actually flip through some of the animations. So much amazing stuff on the walls, guys, just as you kind of went through it. So much awesome stuff. Everywhere you looked, there was different artwork that was just key and instrumental, just priceless artwork. This from The Lion King here, just lining all the walls, just absolutely spectacular. As we moved on down the hallway, you could see that they actually had Steamboat Willie. They didn't even mention this, and you know what? I don't think a lot of people even saw it. We were moving so quick, I don't think people even noticed that this was on the floor. So I quickly grabbed a snapshot of it as I was walking over it, because literally there were like little hidden gems that were just absolutely everywhere. It was crazy. From this point on, we moved downstairs, which was interesting for me because, living in Florida, we don't have any downstairs. And so I'm like, oh yeah, this is California, so they have a downstairs. So she took us into the bowels of the animation building, which as soon as you go down that staircase, you're like, whoa, what's happening here? You're in like a utilidor. And it's one of the first utilidors that Disney created. And what this space was, it was a space for the animators to take their cells to the ink and paint building without it being outside. These cells were so valuable and so delicate that they needed a space to be able to transport them from the animation building to the ink and paint building without having them exposed to daylight or possibly being blown around in the wind. So this tunnel actually connects right to the ink and paint building. And they said there was a bit of a slope on one side. And they said that the animators used to take cells, the cellulose cells from animations, and they would use them and put them on their feet to slide down this ramp in the utilidor. And she said, this is crazy because they were using cells from like Peter Pan and Cinderella, like actual film-used cells from the movies to slide on down this ramp in between buildings. It was at this point that they kind of decided they needed to start doing some archival processes because they were losing so many parts of Disney history, and they didn't even realize it. She mentioned that one of the props from Mary Poppins, the snow globe, was discovered in a janitor's closet, and that the screen-used book from The Wind in the Willows from Ichabod Crane was discovered in a prop department, just like as a prop book. And so they really decided that this was the time that they needed to honestly start doing the archival process. It was interesting to see this utilidor. I wanted to go run down there too, but they didn't let us, unfortunately. I did notice that they had a rat trap. They had a couple of rat traps. I'm like, okay, yeah, that happens everywhere. So from there, we moved upstairs and back to the second floor of the animation building. This here is one of those cells, would have been what they were sliding down that ramp on. And from there, we quickly moved on to, like I said, the second floor, which was the films of Walt Disney. So as you walked down, it was actually live action films. They had all the different movie posters from all the live action, and this is Fantasia, it's not live action, but all the live action movies. I did notice this doorway. I probably shouldn't have taken a picture of it, but I did. It was called The Secret Machine. Like, it was just like, that's what it was called, The Secret Machine. And I'm like, okay, what could that be? Anyway, so I snapped a quick photo of it. I was in the back of the tour, The Secret Machine. No idea what happens in there, but it was very interesting. I had to snap a photo of the Mary Poppins movie poster. This is the original Mary Poppins movie poster. I'm actually looking at it right now. We have the same one on our wall. This is the original. So, of course, I got a picture with it. Sorry, Kristen. This is Walt Disney's Mary Poppins movie poster, the one that they own. Pretty cool. They did have dioramas on the second floor, too, showing the process of how animation goes from storyboarding and all the way through to becoming, a scored piece of music and being screen used. So that was interesting. I'm not sure how long these dioramas have been here, but they looked pretty old and original to the animation building. At this point, we were going to move on up to the third floor. Now, the third floor is all Walt Disney, and it's all lined with pictures of Walt and his family, and pictures of him on movie sets. The third floor is his floor. The third floor also had what they called the hot boxes, which were little screening rooms that would have moviolas in them. Those were they the editors would be going through rough cuts of animated films. And they called them hot boxes because they put off tons of heat and there was no air conditioning. And then when they added air conditioning, they still called them hot boxes because they said Walt Disney used to sit behind them and just make them sweat. He would tap his fingers behind them as he was watching and just make these animators and editors sweat as they were just sitting there working. But this hallway was really awesome. Just all of family pictures of Walt growing up. Now, his office is on this floor, and his suite of offices is on the end of this floor. As we moved along, more awesome, just historical pictures of Walt and his wife and brother, and some of the original. You've probably seen some of these from One Man's Dream, and here they are on the actual wall of the Walt Disney Studios. I loved this. There were quotes here too. Pictures. Speak the most universal understood language, Walt Disney. It was here where, and maybe backwards we can see, this was famous books. This was books from history. So they had a bunch of famous books here. So you might recognize a couple of these, like the one on the left here from Hocus Pocus. They also had the book from Dead Poets Society, bunch of other famous screen-used books. Here's Walt Disney's Mary Poppins again. There you go, Kristen. As we walked by, we ran into the Disney Digital Studios services that was up on the fourth floor. I guess the fourth floor is very small, so there's not much up there. Look at this of Walt and the Mouseketeers, Mickey Mouse Club. This was towards the end of the hallway. Walt and Julie Andrews there at the premiere of Mary Poppins. Lots of Mary Poppins, because, that was one of the first films that combined animation and real, live acting. At the end of the hallway, it moves on. It's kind of like a historical walk. And as you get towards the end of the hallway, towards his office, you get towards the end of Walt's life, which was the Florida Project, is what they called it at that point. So at the end of the hallway, this is what you see. You see Walt and him, talking about the Florida Project. And this is where it stops being an animation building and it starts being part of the Disney archives, which I thought was very interesting. So once you get to Walt's office suite, it stops being a working space, because that whole area was working space and there were people walking around and, just working. And when you get to the end of the third floor here, to the 3H area, this becomes Disney archives. And that's because this is all of Walt's office suite. And you do go through double security doors. I was curious. I'm like, can anybody just walk into the office? You did go through double security doors to get in, and they did say, now you're entering part of the Disney archives, which I thought was pretty interesting. Now, you get inside, and they did have us, they had us take everything, all our personal belongings, and put them in a locker. So everything besides my phone, we all had to put into little lockers. I think they do that for a lot of different reasons. We hear people at attractions at Walt Disney World leaving things behind, like people in the Haunted Mansion leaving ashes behind and that kind of thing. I think they did that for a reason here, because I was like, how many people do you think tried to sneak things into Walt's office? So we had to leave all of our personal belongings in a cubby before we went in. And the first stop that you make is they have an actual animator's office restored. So this is what an animator back in Walt's day, what his office would have looked like. So this necessarily wasn't an animator's office to begin with, since it was in Walt's office suite, but they restored it to kind of as part of the archives to look like what an animator's office would technically look like. Then you enter Walt's sanctum. So this here is actually the first stop that if you were coming to do a meeting with Walt, if you were an actor coming to meet him for the first time, if you were PL Travers coming to meet him, this would be your first stop. This is his outer, he had 2 secretaries or 3 secretaries, but this was like that outer stop of the first secretary. At this point, they had us watch this really interesting short documentary about the Disney archives and about Walt's office. That they said, now after Walt passed, they left the office locked for 2 years. 2 years, nobody went in, nobody went out. It didn't change. It was like Willy Wonka. It did not change at all. Now they said a couple of secretaries had to go in and grab scripts and some other things for the Florida project that were being worked on. But other than that, nobody went in, nobody went out. And then after 2 years, they decided that they needed to use that office space. So instead of having it locked, they had David Smith, the first archivist for the Walt Disney Company, came in and he archived everything, wrote down every last bit of where everything was located in his office, and they took it out. And I mean, like, if a book was upside down, that was noted, what book it was next to, everything. It took him 2 years. It took him 2 years to archive that office. And after that happened, they took everything out and they started using it as regular office space. Somebody from Desperate Housewives had their office in there. I believe that Michael Eisner at one point had his office in there. And then Michael Eisner said, you know what? We got to restore this. I think it was Michael Eisner. So we've got to restore this. I got to move over into my new office that's in the new team building. We're going to bring this back. Because they had everything stored. They had everything stored and cataloged. Like I said, David Smith did it for 2 years, categorizing everything. So they kind of went over that in this short video here. And right outside, they showed us, this was actually a recreation of Walt's Emmy and 7 Little Dwarfs for the Snow White. The real one is actually in the Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, but this was kind of a remake. They actually showed us that a lot of the things in his office are original, but some they didn't have, like this display case for all of his awards was actually a prop from Saving Mr. Banks that they said, hey, can we keep this? Because it's historically accurate. Can we keep it? So that's actually a screen-used prop from Saving Mr. Banks. This is Walt's receptionist desk here, and what was interesting is that this is his original planner. So everything that Walt would have done from getting a haircut to meeting somebody would have been written down by hand, and it's all there in this planner. It's all just sitting right there. And there were little markers where we couldn't reach over. We could take pictures of everything, but they didn't want us reaching over certain things in case we dropped our phone and broke an ashtray or something. So we weren't really allowed to reach over, but we could take pictures of everything. This is where the magic happens, guys. This is where we actually walked into Walt's office. This was his main office. And as I walked in the door, now they did have I wish I had a recording of it. They had soft music, really, really soft music playing in there. And there were only 7 of us, and you could hear a pin drop because I think everybody was thinking the same thing. This is just what a historic and amazing thing to be able to do. As we walked in, I'm stopping on this picture because as we walked in, Feed the Birds was playing. Instrumental, low. And that wasn't playing on repeat. That was one of the many songs that played while we were in there. But Feed the Birds, Walt Disney's favorite song, was playing just low when I walked in the door. And I couldn't really distinguish it at first, but then I went, because it was so quiet. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's Feed the Birds as we walked in. And I just started snapping pictures of absolutely everything because this is his office the day he died. Everything just exactly in the same exact spot where it was when he left it behind. You can see some of those little kind of railings there. That's more of a, hey, don't reach over this. You take pictures, but don't reach over. We don't want you to drop anything on his desk. And his seating area here, it's just so pristine. And the piano, guys, that piano that he would have sat at with the Sherman Brothers. And they said, he would bring the Sherman Brothers in every Friday and they would play him Feed the Birds as a, ode to the weekend. And that's what they would do on this piano. Now, this piano will never be played again. It was played, I don't know if you saw that documentary, what was it called? One Day at Disney, or I can't remember. I think that's what it was called. where they documented the studio. And they had one of the Sherman brothers. My gosh, I can't remember which one it was. I'm sorry, guys. Leave it in the comments. The last surviving Sherman brother came in and played this piano and played Feed the Birds on it one last time. So they brought somebody in to have it tuned because it hadn't been tuned in, century. Hadn't been tuned. So they brought a professional tuner in. They tuned the piano and said, never tune this piano again. We almost broke it tuning it. You're never going to be able to tune this again. And they said, that's okay. We're playing it one last time. So those keys have never been struck since Feed the Birds was played on it by one of the Sherman brothers for the last time, and it will never be played again. It's just too delicate. So I thought that was interesting. That was the last song that was ever played. This is Walt's desk. Everything just kind of left as it was. He's got his Grumman plane here, the miniature. This is a jet that he bought just before he died. He never got to see it. But when you buy a jet, they give you a miniature. And they just kept saying how much Walt loved miniatures. And you see all these miniatures on his desk. That was something he just loved, was miniatures. And so he had, a collection. Everywhere he went, they said somebody would give him a miniature. And there's daughter's pictures on both sides of his desk there. And also, I should note that they're Norman Rockwell's on the outer sides there. Because, hey, if you're friends with Norman Rockwell, why not have Norman Rockwell make images of your daughters? So that's what those are. Is Walt's daughters, represented in a la Norman Rockwell, which is pretty awesome. I had to take some close-up pictures there. You see one of his autographed images. They said, he used to get mobbed at Disneyland and wouldn't sign autographs because he said, if I sign one, I have to sign, a million of them. So he said, if you write me at the studio, I'll send you an autographed, a card. And so that's what that is he was signing tons of those because if you did send him something to the studio to ask for his autograph, he would reply. He'd sign it and send it back. That's pretty awesome. One of his classic ashtrays there and his signature card along with some pens and some pencils there and some paint. This was hanging in the corner, and this was a little automated bird cage. I can't remember what they called it, but I think he got this in New Orleans. And that was, sorry, I'll go back to it. That was what kind of spurred his love of audio animatronics, is this bird kind of moved around a little bit. And so this was the impetus for Tiki Birds and for the start of audio animatronics. I was just enthralled with the piano and this whole area of the bookshelf. They said every book was placed back just as he had it. If it was upside down, it was upside down. If it was right side up, it was right side up. And the order, they pointed out one specific book. And if you can see that in the center there, that is Walt's copy of Mary Poppins signed by P.L. Travers. Right there, still sitting in his bookcase, just sitting there. They said it was interesting. He did have a book about Walt Disney. There was one book about Walt Disney in there. They thought that was funny. So I was able to grab a really quick selfie as we were walking out. I was the last person in there. So it's kind of cool to be like, hey, I stood in Walt's office alone. If those walls could talk, what would they say? I did notice that he had what looked to be a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride vehicle sitting there. So I snapped a picture of that. From there, you move quickly to Walt's working office. So the first office was his show office. The second office is his working office. This is where he would have actually gotten work done. And that's why these pictures on the wall are mostly of Disneyland and of the Florida project. You can see this couch is well loved. It was used. So this is his desk. You might not be able to tell. This desk is it's 2.5 feet off the ground. 3 feet off the ground. It is super low. It looked like a kindergartner's desk, and so did the chairs. The chairs were super, super low as well. And we're like, why is this a miniature desk? He loves miniatures so much. Why is his desk miniature? And they said, no, this is how animators like to work. They like to have a desk that's low to the ground. They like to be able to hover over their work and be able to look at it really closely. So I didn't know that. I thought that was just really interesting. There's his plane that he actually did have. He loved his miniatures, and they said he loved the planes. These are scripts. Some of them read, some of them not read. This was the order of them just laying on his desk, just waiting to be read or waiting to be used. They pointed out this little deer behind his desk, this little miniature. They said he actually made that himself. It was like a little Bambi that he made himself, which I thought was really interesting. But this was a working desk, and they said they may have, I'll go back to this here. They said that this is actually what it looked like. They said his secretaries, when he was in the hospital, probably cleaned things up for him because that's what they did. So, like, why doesn't it look like it's in more of a disarray? Well, they said his secretaries would come in and clean his office every night. They would tidy things up. So this is most likely what it looked like after they tidied up for the night. And this is how it's going to stay. I just think that's amazing. It took them 2 years to memorize or to write down where everything was. And you could see, it's like, look at this little piece of like schematic or artwork that's on the corner of the chair of the armchair of the, the couch. That's still there, like it's just there. This is his briefcase. I noticed it and I called it out because she said, "Is there any questions?" I said, "Is that Walt's briefcase?" And she said, "Yeah, that is. That's Walt's briefcase." It would have been, his secretaries would have put scripts in there, and they said it's kind of funny. The secretary always noted that when Walt got back from a trip that it looked exactly the same as when he left. So he never read anything in there when he was traveling. I was just enamored by the desk and by just the intricacies of everything there. Just like a glimpse into his life. They had a small kitchenette in the back, stocked with V8 and Hormel chili beans and Spam. They said if you were invited to Walt Disney's office for any kind of meeting, you would have been handed a warm room temperature glass of V8. And that's just what he did. That's what he drank. They said it's kind of gross, but that's what he would have handed you. And hey, if Walt Disney hands you a glass of V8, you drink a glass of V8. This kitchen was hand designed by General Electric. General Electric did not design many kitchenettes. This might have been the only one. It was completely restored. It had a full working kitchen, everything working, an oven, anything that you might have needed while working long hours. These are his actual personal initialed glasses, Walter Elias Disney, that they have here as well. Very cool. One last glimpse of his office as we walked out. It was just really cool to be able to say this is where he worked. This is where he put so much time and effort into everything, and to be able to see where he would have sat and looked out the window and what he would have seen from his view from his desk, and just thinking how many people were in here and how many conversations and how many ideas were spurred in this office was just amazing. So from there, you move quickly into Walt's private space, which nobody has pictures of. So they turned it into a little bit of a museum with some history pieces. They said Walt would have had a bed and a shower in there, and they showed the spot where the shower would have been. And I'm like, wow, this is where Walt Disney showered. That's crazy, because he did have a private space, but they couldn't restore it because they didn't have any pictures of it because it was his private space and nobody had ever taken pictures in there, and not a lot of people had even been in there. So they did have him and his brother Roy. This was their parking space markers where they would have parked. You could see Walt's is a bit aged there. I bet you it sat there for a really long time. I imagine that nobody wanted to take that parking, space sign off the wall. So I imagine it stayed there for a really, really long time. This is interesting. This is a picture we asked about that was in that same room. We said, what is going on here? This is the 4th floor of the animation building where it's open to the roof. They said, it was a lot of guys. They go up there and they would sunbathe in the nude on the roof of the animation building until there was a convent that opened next door, and the nuns called and said, hey, your animators need to put clothes on. They can't lay on the roof naked anymore. So this is one picture that kind of commemorates that, I guess. At this point, we did leave Walt's office, and they did hand us a guidebook for the Disney Legends. They handed us a guide for the office suite so we can remember it. They also gave us a Mousker and a Duckster pin. Those would have been what the Walt Disney Company gave out as awards to each other. They said, like, Walt gave one to Roy, Roy gave one to Walt, that they were, like, handing out these trophies to each other. And so that's the pins that they gave us here. They gave us a Burbank studio pin. This was the old design for the original design for the studio. So it was cool to have something to take with us on the way out. That's when we left the Disney archives and went back into, this is just a small portion. This is like an annexed portion of the Disney archives because obviously his office space is archived. So we left that space. I grabbed a really quick selfie here. I didn't see anybody else like taking selfie pictures, so I felt kind of weird, but I'm like, nope, I'm doing it anyways. It's fine. Also, I had to take a quick picture of my guest pass because I had a really cool pass that says Walt Disney World Company on it, so I grabbed that too. At this point, we moved on to their team building. This is their new building built by Michael Eisner. And as you can see, it's held up by the Seven Dwarfs because the whole studio was, in fact, built on money from the picture Seven Dwarfs and the Prophets. So that's why it makes sense that the Seven Dwarfs are holding the building up. And that rotunda on the top there is where they would hold their private wine and dine sessions, I guess, apparently. This is one of the few places, this Legend Square, this is one of the few places where you can actually touch the partner statue. You actually go up and touch it because it's in the theme parks, it's in Walt Disney World, it's at Disneyland, but you can't touch it because it's, cordoned off. So really cool opportunity to get a picture, to be able to touch the partner statue right there in Disney Legend Square. And we had some time. Oh, I guess I got multiples of that. It was kind of fun to walk around and see the Disney legends that have their handprints. They gave us a little map so we could look. And the first ones I stumbled on were all of the Golden Girls. Betty White, B. Arthur, Estelle Getty, and I can't remember the other one, Rue, there in the corner. That was cool that I stumbled on that right away. And of course, Jim Henson, Marty Sklar, one of my favorites. Marty Sklar, the head of WDI, who actually built Epcot, quite a Disney legend. I stumbled on his as well. So I took a picture with Marty. And this is just some of the artwork here outside. Really cool space when we were there. Alan Menken, of course, his music from many, many Disney movies, The Little Mermaid and so on. There were just people eating, people enjoying. Here's Julie Andrews for Kristen. Found that one. And this, looks familiar. They have this at Walt Disney World. So I thought it was interesting. They had some of the same copper statuettes here as well. And just another picture of partners. From there, we moved on to the Frank G. Wells building, which houses the full Disney archives. It also houses Marvel Studios. So all of Marvel Studios is in there, which I thought was cool. As we walked in, we were able to see one of the remaining multiplane cameras, and they had a really quick little display about Disneyland. We'll be looking at that in just a second, but they did let us go into the Walt Disney Archives, which they explained to us is really just where the paper archives are stored. Anything that was written down or as paper is stored here. Anything that would have been larger, like a prop, is in a different warehouse. So these archives are more paper archives, and this is a spot where people can come in, and if they're doing a research project in like the monorail system and they want to see like documents about it, they can come in and request them, and it's like a library. They can sit in there and they can look at documents and write them down and take notes and do whatever they want to do with that. As we walked in, the display that they had up was the Yeti from the Matterhorn attraction. And so it was cool to be able to get up real close. They said nobody ever gets up close to the Yeti because you were just zipping by it on the attraction. So here I got to actually sit down and have, my picture with the Yeti from Matterhorn was really cool. And this moment was amazing. They said, we don't get to do this often, but we have one of Walt's original Oscars here. I can't remember. I'll have to zoom in. I can't remember which Oscar this was because he still holds the record for winning the most Academy Awards. So they had one sitting there. It was in a velvet pouch. And they said, if you use both hands, we'll let you hold this Oscar. So I was able to physically hold one of Walt's Oscars. This was really cool. They were there were two people on either side of me right now with bated breath. Like, okay, you done? Okay, and hand it back. They were very, 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 protective of that Oscar. So on the way out, we got a little bit closer view of the multiplane camera system. This is one of 4 remaining. They're not in use anymore. I think Oliver and Company, they said, was the last movie that used the multiplane camera. Now it's all done in computer. But this is one of the 4 remaining multiplane cameras that are in existence. They also pointed out this was Marvel Studios up there. You can see Iron Man suit up there in their lobby. You might be able to see Thor's hammer there along next to a Teen Choice Award. And that was just a glimpse of what we got. Also, they had this Disney land kind of showcase happening at the archives because of the 70th. And there you can see Hooter from Captain EO. I thought that was really cool. So I took a picture of Hooter from Captain EO there outside. Bunsen and Beaker's lab, I thought that was unique. Sorry, I went pretty quick there. Bunsen and Beaker's lab, I thought that was unique. That's just like a space for people to work and collaborate and get things done here at the Frank G. Wells building. We stepped outside quick and she's like, hey, look at these benches. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's a bench. Sweet. She's like, well, Disney Studios took over Fox. And so these benches are actually screen used from Titanic. So if you want to go sit on one of the Titanic benches, they're just chilling there at the Disney Studio. I took a lot of pictures just of some of the architecture. Like this was just chilling at a fence post everywhere. Hey, if you're Walt Disney Studios, why not go with it? So I thought that was really unique. From there, we moved on to the Ink and Paint building. This is the one that was connected by Utilidor. We were in here very shortly because this building is still used by a lot of offices. So we quickly zoomed down the hall of the Ink and Paint building, and at the end of the hallway was the Lucasfilm department. They said we were just recently able to take pictures of this. We weren't able to go inside, but we were able to look through the doors of Lucasfilm. There were people going in and going out, so it was very busy. But yeah, we were able to capture just a couple of images. They got C-3PO standing in there, and some other props. I felt kind of weird because I was like right against the door, like taking pictures, and there were people in there, but it was pretty cool. So to be able to stand outside Lucasfilm, that's all there, guys. It's all part of it. One of the last things we went by were the studios, the actual working studios. So this is Production Operations Center, where they would have been managing their sound stages. Along this corridor also was the Motion Picture Film Archive. This is where Walt Disney actually stores their negatives. So I'm talking original negatives for all of their movies are in this building. So it's very protective. They also said because Disney took over 20th Century Fox, that movies like The Princess Bride and Home Alone, their original negatives are all stored in this building as well, temperature controlled and well taken care of. So if you're looking for original negatives, the original prints from your Walt Disney classics, they are in this vault right here, which I thought was pretty awesome. This was actually one of the better spots for us to get a picture of the water tower. They said that Walt Disney's water tower is a bit unique. Instead of having, instead of having just 3 legs like most water towers in the area for studios, this one had 4 because Roy thought that it looked so much aesthetically more pleasing to have 4 legs than 3. And they said that was interesting for Roy because he was a money man and it cost $3,000 extra at that time to put a 4th leg in. But he said, no, it just looks better. So it was interesting for Roy to spend a little bit more money. We stopped by a couple of the sound stages along the way. I mean, this was a working studio, so there was a lot going on. We stopped by stage 1. Now, anything that you would have seen Walt Disney do about the Disney parks, his check-in on Disneyland and about the Florida project, all would have been recorded here in stage 1. They said that one of the realms from The Mandalorian was in there. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. That's where this just giant 10K screen with parallax vision that they can move the camera around in. They said that's inside there right now, that there was a realm in there. And I was like, oh my gosh, let me in. But no, they did not let us in. This, I believe, was also where a lot of the filming was done for Mary Poppins. Oh, that's actually stage 2. Stage 2 is where Mary Poppins was filmed. A lot of the iconic film pieces like the Chim Chimney was all filmed right here in stage 2. So very epic place to visit. Guys, that wraps up the studio tour pretty much. From there on, I was allowed to go and spend 30 minutes inside their studio employee store and to walk around and see all the amazing things and purchase. We spent a lot of money in there. Yeah, we spent a lot of money. And I did a FaceTime call with Kristen from inside there, which was pretty cool. We got to pick out a lot of unique merchandise, and you'll probably see me wearing it on our live streams. Okay, now I did say that if you stayed with me till the end, I would share a bit of video that I wasn't supposed to take, but I did. This is from that first floor animation hallway. Yeah, I was like, okay. This was just my live photos. But this is that brand new doorway at the studio lab here on the first floor of the animation building that they said, oh my gosh, this is brand new. This has never been doing this before. And the translucent glass there just like had a bunch of Disney characters like rolling through it and cycling through it. Of course, I didn't catch very many of them, but You saw BB-8 there, so that was pretty cool.
The tour is over. I'm back at the car in the parking lot, so I'm okay to record video inside here in the car. What an amazing tour. It was a lot longer and more in depth than I thought, and I literally saw most of the entire Disney Studio lot. It was great because before the tour, I got to go into that shop that has a bunch of exclusive stuff just for here. And then after the tour, we were able to go back there and buy whatever we wanted. Obviously, the highlight was Walt's office. It was surreal standing in there. And I just kept thinking if these walls could talk. I didn't take a whole lot of pictures in Walt's private space that they didn't even really know. It was kind of a museum piece right now. But I kept thinking if these walls could talk, what could they say or what would they say? And it was just such an amazing and humbling experience. I will say the Disney Studio is a lot smaller and more quaint than I imagined it would be. It's very small. There wasn't a whole lot going on here today. It seemed fairly quiet. It was really cool to walk around the Legends Plaza and to see Marty Sklar and to see the Sherman Brothers and all those other Disney legends there, and to be able to touch the partner statues. So if doing this tour is something that you're interested, I know that D23, if you're a gold member, they'd offer this tour. I don't know how many spaces they're doing or how many are left. There are only 8 people on the tour, very small, kind of quaint atmosphere for the tour. So what a wonderful time here at Disney Studios today. Thank you to D23. Thank you to our wonderful tour guide. If you're interested in knowing more about Park Pass TV, make sure you hit that subscribe button and follow us for more of our Disney adventures now around the country. All right, guys.